Well, welcome everybody. This video is going to look at the Ethereum price, and we're looking back over a period of 5 years to try and judge where Ethereum is sitting currently. We're filming this in the middle of July 2025, and the Ethereum price is trading in a band between $3,700 and $3,900 US. Compare this to the historic all-time high, which occurred around November 21, when we were trading at around $4,700 US. Now the chart looks very different if you bought into Ethereum as recently as April 25, with an almost 60% uplift in the Ethereum price over those 3 months. So as in all aspects of crypto, timing is everything. Now, why look at Ethereum price at this time in its evolution? Well, that's because we've got some concern about the development of Ethereum Treasury companies, and one of the ones that should know what they're doing in the crypto space is Bitmine Immersion. Trades on the New York Stock Exchange as BMNR, and it's recently pivoted from being a Bitcoin miner to what it perceives as a Ethereum Treasury company. Now, they've not done this with cash that they've got sitting in the bank. As you can see here, they've actually raised 1.8 billion in a share offering specifically to acquire Ethereum. And they've disclosed that their long-term goals are to control up to 5% of the total Ethereum supply available. Now, in the short term, that's certainly been beneficial to them. Just look at their share price here, festering along for a long period at as little as sort of $7 or $8, and then this big lift here in July 25 to 135. It's settled back down, but it's still trading at significantly higher levels than its historic range over this 1 year period. If we go to the max, though, you can see it's down from an all-time high of $3,200 US, and that's the little uplift that they've seen here. Tiny in comparison. So you can see partly why they've done it, but maybe the time. So what's Ethereum really worth in today's money? Well, here are the figures. We put them into and asked ChatGPT to produce some comparative figures for us, and here they are. Headline CPI. Now these are American US figures. The cumulative change over that period of time has been 18.6%. So with Ethereum's all-time high back in 21 being just under $4,900, the equivalent price today needed to have the same purchasing power is a whopping 5,780. Now, obviously, we've shown you Ethereum's well below that currently at its trading range. If we allow for the M2 money supply increase, that's been gradually increased by a whopping 28% over the same period. Now, the effect of that is to, again, reduce the purchasing power of the US dollar, and we would need Ethereum to be trading at around $6,240 US to have the same purchasing power when you allow for the increase in monetary supply. And then finally, we asked it to allow for asset inflation. Now, asset inflation is looking at stocks, property, general assets that you may have as comparable investments if you put your money into them as opposed to Ethereum. Now, if you'd done that again to buy the same equivalent basket of assets, you would require Ethereum to be trading at around $6,430 US. And there's the interpretation and the summary there compared to what it would be worth in 21. So the bottom line, Ethereum's price today is less than the 5,700 that would need to be at, even just allowing for CPI inflation. So we asked it to look, well, how does that compare to Bitcoin, and where's Bitcoin standing now as opposed to where it was in the all-time high? If we look back at the all-time high of Bitcoin back in 21, it peaked at 68,787. This is from CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap figures that it pulled. Adjusted all-time high in inflation and debasement for Bitcoin. Well, for CPI at 18.6, with you the same figures as it did for Ethereum, Bitcoin would need to be trading around 81,500. For money supply, 88,000, and for stocks and assets generally, we'd need a Bitcoin price now to have just kept its purchasing value of 90,800 US. And there's the comparative summaries comparing CPI, money supply, and asset inflation. So what's the actual price of Bitcoin today? Well, this is where Chat GPT really got it wrong. Thought Bitcoin was trading in the 71 to 73,000. So we had to correct it and say, well, can you actually find the Bitcoin price today? And when we did this and ran the figures, Bitcoin was trading at 118,500. So that's the 24-hour range, 117 to 120. Interpretation of the results? Well, it's outperformed it, hasn't it? It's one of the few assets that actually has. And to recap the targets for Bitcoin 2021, its peak back then was 68,700. And if you bought at that time, your target price now allowing for CPI, money supply and assets, there you are, figures. We really want it to have exceeded 90,800 just to have kept its purchasing power in terms of asset. And there it has. It's outperformed them by a good 30%. Okay, so Bitcoin now is well above all these figures. 45% if you just allow for CPI, which I think is a naive allowance. M2 money supply is still 35% higher than that, and total asset inflation 30%. Compare that to Ethereum, and here are the figures. Look, Ethereum now, actual price running around 3,800. The targets on even CPI is 34% below, 39% what you'd expect or hope for with money supply, and a whopping 41% decrease in purchasing power when all investment assets are compared. Now this is where we've got the concern. Why do companies want to, at this stage, put their money into Ethereum as an asset which they expect to outperform these three targets? And we just simply have no historic understanding of why they're considering this is a good idea. I'd like to hear from you. If you've got some insight into why they are now punting with Ethereum, then do let us know in comments. And let's have a look in the next video at why the Ethereum price hasn't kept pace with Bitcoin. So do subscribe, and we'll hopefully produce that video with some insights into that answer over the next coming weeks. Thanks for watching.